Welcome to day 59 on the trail. We have 4 readings today: Acts chapter 10, Exodus chapter 32, the 68th Psalm, and Wisdom chapter 12, verses 3 through 18. On day 58, we witnessed a connection between the wisdom of Solomon and the plagues of Egypt recorded in Exodus. In Wisdom chapter 12, we see another connection when God told the Israelites his plan to free the promised land little by little. In Exodus 23, beginning in verse 28, "And I will send the pestilence in front of you, which shall drive out the Hivites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites from before you. I will not drive them out before you in 1 year, or the land would become desolate, and the wild animals would multiply against you. Little by little, I will drive them out from before you, until you have increased and possessed the land." Then, speaking of driving out the Hivites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites, we find in Wisdom chapter 12, beginning in verse 8, this: "But even these you spared, since they were but mortals, and sent wasps as forerunners of your army to destroy them little by little. Though you are not unable to give the ungodly into the hands of the righteous in battle, or to destroy them at one blow by dread wild animals, or your stern word. But judging them little by little, you gave them an opportunity to repent." Once again, we are reminded of God's patience and mercy. Far too often, we are the ones who become impatient. We see only our situation and the events which affect us directly. Now that is understandable. But meanwhile, God's vision encompasses a much broader picture. Trusting God with that larger vision is one of the places where faith begins. For the remainder of our time together today, we have 2 important passages, one in Acts 10 and the other in Exodus 32. Since the story contained in Acts 10 is closely connected to Acts 11 and eventually Acts 15, I will save Acts 10 for day 60. And today, we will continue our reflection on impatience and center ourselves on Exodus 32. As Exodus 32 opens, Moses is still on Mount Sinai talking to God and receiving the covenant. Sinai is probably covered in smoke, and I would like to note that the people are still receiving manna from God to eat every day. Then, this happens in verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Why this sudden and drastic change? Why are they distancing themselves from Moses and from God? Well, the key here is not just impatience. Look at the very end of verse 1 again. We do not know what has become of him. A big component to the frustration of impatience has to do with control, or more specifically, a lack of control. They wanted to be in control, and so do we. That is nothing new. There is something about knowing, about trusting ourselves rather than someone else. Trusting that God knows what is best for us is difficult. Trusting that God will be there as He has promised can be challenging. The quest for control is very powerful. And as we see here, it is this quest for control that can quickly lead to idolatry. Perhaps this is why idolatry is listed so early in the Ten Commandments. At its core, idolatry is the quest to control God, to know what is happening, and by extension, control it. What the people are saying is, give us a God that we can keep our eye on, a God we can control. The irony is that we know this is a fool's errand. The great prophet Isaiah tells a story of a craftsman forming an idol in Isaiah 44. And it is almost funny if it were not so tragic. In the story, a craftsman grows a tree, cuts it down, and brings it home. And then this happens. From Isaiah 44, beginning in verse 16. Half of it he burns in the fire. Over this half he roasts meat, eats it, and is satisfied. He also warms himself and says, "Ah, I am warm. I can feel the fire." The rest of it he makes into a god, his idol, bows down to it, and worships it. He prays to it and says, "Save me, for you are my God." Are we so different today? We have our own idols. They just don't look like idols. Yet, we still come up with inventive ways to find control. Maybe it is downplaying the role of God in our lives, or we attempt to recreate God in our image, according to our rules. We want God to be at our disposal. Now, when Aaron made the golden calf, it took some work and planning. This was not a mistake or an accident. It is not like Aaron tripped, fell, and the gold of Israel fell out of his hands into the fire, and then out popped a golden idol. However, as we will see later in the story, this is actually the excuse that Aaron gives to Moses. In Exodus 32, verse 24, Aaron tells Moses, after he returns from Mount Sinai, "I said to them, 'Whoever has gold, take it off.' So they gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf." "Moses, I just threw the gold into the fire and out popped a calf. Who knew?" However, like I said earlier, creating an idol takes time, effort, and planning. Decisions are involved. In the same way, when we see Jesus face to face one day, I do not believe that "I don't know what happened" or "I had no idea" is going to cut it. Despite the actions of Aaron and the people of Israel, Moses pleads with God for patience and forgiveness. Moses calls upon the shared history between God and his people. In Exodus 32, beginning in verse 11, "But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, 'O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath, change your mind, and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them by your own self, saying to them, I will multiply your descendants like the stars of the heaven. And all this land that I have promised, I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever.' And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster he planned to bring on his people." After the prayer of Moses, we read that God changes his mind about destroying Israel and starting over with Moses. This is the same word we find in Genesis 6:6 prior to the great flood, which said, "And the Lord was sorry that he made humankind on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart." So what changes God's mind in this instance? Perhaps it was the connections, the relationships, a reminder that God had promised to be with his people. In the end, we do not know for sure, but what we learn is that despite us, God does not give up on us. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay on the trail.